Social Security can feel complicated, but it doesn't have to be. When should you claim? How does working affect your benefits? We'll break it down with clear answers to your biggest questions next on the Compounding Change podcast.
This is the Compounding Change podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and daviscompoundingchange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to daviscompoundingchange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Compounding Change, the podcast where small intentional actions build over time to create lasting impact. Today's episode's a little bit different, and I'd say extra special, because my sister Jenna, is in the host seat, and I'm on the other side of the mic. We've done the back and forth before, but this time I'm letting you have the driver's seat, right, Jen? Yeah. Yeah, you're in control. So we thought we'd dive into a topic that trips up a lot of people and affects almost everyone. Social Security. Sounds fun, right? Rather than me rattling off a bunch of facts, which can be really boring, Jenna's going to ask the questions you're probably already wondering about because she was. So, Jenna, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shan. Yeah, and I have been wondering about this. And I know just even last week we were talking about some of this stuff, and we thought this is a great podcast episode to have because I'm certain that I am not the only one with a bunch of questions. So, and because it felt overwhelming and felt confusing, just when I think I understand it, you'll share something else, and I'm like, Aaron and I went to a retirement planning class. I should say, we always think we try and stay in the know. And we're like, we got this. Let's just see what this is about. And I tell you what, it was 2 days. I mean, we went one Thursday and one like the following Thursday. So that was helpful because it allowed us time to like let that stuff sink in. And we walked away with going, yeah, we know a lot of this other great stuff. But when they started covering like Social Security and even Medicare and whatnot, there were some questions that came up for us. Like, it seems like it's fairly straightforward, but when we started looking at our own personal situation, I think what we normally were thinking was, okay, when you get to 65, you start collecting Social Security. And we heard some different things. We heard, I knew you could collect it earlier at age 62, but what I was really surprised about is actually for our age, 67 is full retirement age. And, but you could wait till 70. And I'm like, I kind of knew that too, but it was not like in the front part of my memory bank. And then the people who were talking at this workshop were saying, well, it's all about your, personal scenarios. And if you waited, it did this and that. And I tell you, we left there and our heads were spinning. So
I'm sure.
I'm hoping that maybe we have do an episode on Social Security on this episode that it'll even clear some things up for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of people have a lot of questions, and I got into learning about Social Security more because, well, originally, and you've heard it and we'll talk about it, but the WEP, but so that triggered the fact that I needed to know more myself. And I was surprised at how much people don't know about Social Security, and they'll just collect at a certain age because their neighbor did. So.
Yes. Well, that, and what also I'm thinking about is like when do you collect, right? But there's questions I have around like death benefits, and not even so much that I'm worried or concerned for myself, but as I think about like our parents are getting older, whenever that happens, I mean, I'm making an assumption. How do you help a parent who has lost their spouse navigate stuff like that? Because it might not be in the forefront of your mind because you're not close to retirement, possibly at that time. But they're dealing with so much. I don't expect, whether it's mom or dad, whomever might be having to navigate that. I don't expect them to navigate that all on their own or to even know. So I think that's what I also walked away from that seminar and was thinking about our parents. Like, I need to know some of this stuff so I know the
Right.
questions to ask Social Security admin and whatnot. So let me just start off with something like really basic. What is Social Security really? And why does it matter so much in the big picture of retirement planning?
Well, definitely a great question to start with, right? The basics. So first of all, it is a government program that provides income when you retire, which I think a lot of people know that, but also when you become disabled, and it can also support your family if you pass away. A lot of people think Social Security is just a little bonus check. I know I've always kind of regarded it as that because of all the talk about it, but a bonus check in retirement. But for a lot of people, it's the only leg of their retirement income. When you think of like a three-legged stool or a stool, that's one leg of it. So for some people, though, it's the only leg. In fact, about half retirees rely on Social Security for at least half of their income. And for others, Social Security becomes the backbone of support when they have lost a loved one. So, I mean, maybe they're still young with young kids at home and one parent wasn't working and the other person was. And then the working parent passes away. How do you go out and get a job when you have young children at home who are used to you being home with them and you're taking care of them full time and you're mourning the loss of your spouse and you were probably living paycheck to paycheck? So Social Security is there to help. But don't get carried away like you're coming into a bunch of money, because there's actually a one-time lump sum death benefit, which is capped at $255, and it's been that way since 1954. But it's not it's not that payment that's really helping people. Obviously, that's not really paying for the funeral expenses you'd think. But the bigger focus is on that monthly income.
Okay, got it. And I'm kind of floored by the one-time lump sum. I don't know, the languaging might have to change around that one. A lump sum, I think of something larger, but
Right.
nonetheless, you're right. I can understand that it's really the monthly income that supplement because that person is no longer there, or even in retirement, it can be a supplement to your income, but oftentimes it is the mainstream of income. So while I know probably there's a lot of people out there who don't want to have to solely rely on it, and that's really comforting and cool if that's their case. But I also know there's a lot of people who have worked so hard all their lives, and that is going to be their sole income.
Yep.
So I think what's coming up for me now when I think about it is there let's death benefits aside, if you're just talking about retirement, is there a right age or right time to start claiming your benefits? And the reason why I'm asking that is because as I'm nearing retirement-ish age, another 10 years, 15 years or so, who knows?
Right.
But I mean, it's getting a lot closer than, 15, 20
It
years
goes
ago.
fast.
It does.
Yeah.
It goes super fast.
People
So
don't
I've
realize
heard,
it.
right? Yeah. So I've heard you can retire at 62 and then start drawing benefits. But then growing up at the age that I am, I have 65 in my head as retirement age. And that would be when I would draw Social Security. However, as I'm paying attention to things, I was like, wait a minute, they're calling full retirement now like 67 or maybe even 66. And then when I looked up my Social Security benefit stuff, it's like, but wait, there's more. If
Right.
you wait till age 70. So that's kind of a big span, 62 to 70. Help me out with this.
Okay.
What,
Well,
what's the right age to retire and to start claiming your Social Security?
of course. Of course. Well, naturally, I have to throw out my standard answer, but it is true. And that is, it depends. Right. So if you claim at 62, which you can claim at 62, your check is smaller. I mean, give something, get something, right?
Yeah.
But you get more years of payments. So some would argue that you're getting more payments, so you're getting more money. But if you wait until age 70, which is past your full retirement age, then your benefit grows from your full retirement age. It grows 8% per year after the full retirement age. So for those born after 1960, that would have 3 years to grow 8% for those who were a 66 full retirement age, or 66 in 2 months, or 66 in 4 months. I mean, it just kept going to try to get to that 67 age. They got a little bit more because they had more years of 8%, but right now it's 24% if you wait the whole time. So as you said, 66 to 67, like I said, those born 1960 and later, the current full retirement age is 67.
Okay. Well, that helps. Thank you. And that makes sense, right? And I can see also how that depends on your personal situation, right? But are you actually tell me, like, what are you looking at when you're talking to your clients and you're trying to help them make that decision? Like, are there certain questions that they need to be pondering, or certain scenarios they really need to be running through in order to make that decision?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, of course, of course, I deal with a lot of firefighters. So it comes down to health concerns, job loss, lack of other income that might prompt somebody to claim early. So, again, back to the firefighters, I hear all the time, I'm not going to live that long. I mean, there are health concerns, there are some family history, but, it is true that there are more health issues with firefighters, although, with Karen, with Jeff's mom, there was a firefighter in there and he was like 98 years old. They never expected him to live that long. But, his wife was starting to panic about money. But ultimately, I mean, so people might think they don't have the life expectancy, but they might. So then you might prioritize a benefit sooner than later. So let's use a quick scenario for illustration. Okay, let's say Jim retires at 62 with a benefit of $1,500.
Okay.
And his buddy Dave, they're the same age, but his buddy Dave waits until 67, considering, say, they had the same earning history and everything. And his benefit's $2,100. By the time they're both in their late 70s, Dave's higher check has more than caught up to Jim's early start. So if you do the math on it, if you're looking at dollar for dollar comparison, they equal out in late 70s, early 80s. So it's a trade-off. Do you need the money sooner, or can you afford to wait for that bigger check later? And that's where personal planning comes in.
Okay. That helps kind of help me even figure out from personal planning as well what it would really mean if I were to decide to take it earlier or later. Super, super helpful. So I'm going to switch gears though a little bit, because I'm recalling past conversations we've had, and I've heard you mention something called WEP, WEP, and I actually saw you had posted about it as well. So I'm wondering, because you do work with so many firefighters, I think this is something that really just applies a lot to firefighters, or I'll say like civil servant, like in public service, possibly. It might be helpful if you could just break that down again, like.
Yeah.
What is this WEP or WEP? What's changed?
So WEP stands for Windfall Elimination Provision. I always look at it like nobody wants you just coming into a windfall like you won the lottery and have a better retirement than what you had. That's how I remembered it. But it used to reduce Social Security benefits for people who had a pension. So like I said, a lot of the people I worked with, from a job that didn't pay into Social Security. So like the firefighters, they're paying into their pension, they're not paying into Social Security. So you think, how are they getting Social Security, right? Well, a lot of them work those 24-hour shifts, and it's a few times a week, and ultimately they take another job. Well, that other job actually pays into Social Security. So before the repeal, a firefighter might have that other job and they're making some income and paying into Social Security, but because of WEP, his Social Security was cut down by a few $100s a month. There's actually levels that they calculate, that Social Security calculates. They calculate your income, and on the first X amount of dollars of this calculation, you get a certain percentage, and then the second level, and then the third level. So a lot of the firefighters are living in that first level, and that's why it seemed so drastic. But out the window now. It's been repealed. Okay. So that same first responder gets his full benefit. And for a lot of public safety people, that's a big win. It puts real money back in their pockets in retirement.
Yeah, I mean, that really is quite a big deal, right? So for firefighters, like others affected by the repeal, I'm wondering what should they be doing now to make sure that they're getting their full benefits?
Definitely. Well, we've talked about this before, like with Medicare, right? Nobody's
Mhm.
going to call you up and say, hey, you hit that age and you should be getting this, right? Well, a lot of these first responders went into retirement and they were told that they weren't going to get anything because of WEP. So they never filed. So nobody even knows that they should file. So they need to go back because they will get a lump sum check for a certain amount. Of course, that time is getting away from us because it only goes back so far, but they should be reaching out or, and making sure that they're getting their benefit calculation. So
Okay.
ultimately, get the money and make sure that they're not leaving any money behind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So is there I mean, I'm saying reach out to somebody like you, but probably somebody who has experience working with firefighters specifically would be the most beneficial, I imagine.
I always think so. There's a lot of details with their 457, with
Mhm.
their pensions, with their drop money, and
Yeah.
just with the whole with Social Security. And so, I mean, it is helpful to know
Oh,
somebody who actually works in this
okay.
arena.
All
Yeah.
right. So that's helpful. Okay, so now here's where my next question goes. Because you gave an example about a firefighter having his social security reduced from a second job,
Hmm.
right? I mean, they're firefighting, but then there's another job that's paying the social security. So what happens if someone starts collecting social security at 62 or 63, but they actually still want to work, or maybe they're working part-time? Do you like lose your check then? Or I mean, what happens to your social security check?
So not lose,
Mhm.
fortunately, but sometimes delayed. So
Okay.
again, since we're not doing a whiteboard or anything here, let's give another example.
Okay.
um, Use Mike. So he claims at 62 with a $1,200 benefit. He keeps working and say that earned income is $32,000. So the earning limit for 2025, and this adjusts every year, but for 2025, it's $22,320.
Okay.
So essentially at 32,000, he's $10,000 over. So that
Mm.
means Social Security withholds $1 for every $2 over of that earned income. So over that $22,000 amount, every $2 gets a dollar taken away. So that's
Okay.
about $5,000.
Mhm.
Or what his benefit was, it's about 4 months of checks withheld.
Wow.
Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, makes sense, but it
Okay.
feels like that's where I think it feels like, oh, something's getting taken away from you. It's
It
just
does.
delayed gratification.
Well, and I think sometimes people look at it, they think that that's about the taxes, and that's a whole nother, that's not even your
Mm.
taxes. But
Okay.
there is good news. At full retirement age, they give him credit for those withheld months. So his benefit goes up permanently, like rolling over unused vacation days. So
Okay.
his monthly benefit would actually go up because of the 5,000 essentially being paid back to him.
Okay.
So, in addition,
Mhm.
though, because you're taking a lesser benefit at 62, but if you keep
Yeah.
working, those are still working years. So, if those working years end up being, and for some of the firefighters, it ends up being their top earning years because Social
Mm.
Security is calculated on the top 35 years of earnings.
Yeah.
So if those ended up being some of the top earning years, Social Security would actually do a recalculation of his benefit based on that earning history. And ultimately,
Okay.
that would be an increase too. So, yes, you take that hit taking it early, but
Mhm.
those are two ways that you're going to get an
Okay.
increase. It's not because you got older, it's because you worked more and made more money.
Okay. That makes sense. I think I get that, right? But when I think about then calculating that retirement benefit, sometimes I hear people when people give the examples, probably just because it's an example, it's really clean cut. Like if you retire in January or you retire in December, right?
Right.
Not everyone does that. So like what happens if, let's say you're earning a decent salary in the first half of the year and come like May or June, you're like, I'm checking out. I'm retiring now.
I need some income.
Yeah, right. How does like your Social Security monthly payment get calculated if when that's the case? There comes a moment when doing more isn't the answer. Being more of yourself is. Hi, I'm Jenna Stoliker, a leadership coach who helps you navigate change by coming home to what matters most. If you're standing at a threshold and wondering what's next, let's walk it together. Learn more at jennastoliker.com.
Again, let's use an example. Let's change gears, right? Let's call her Susan. Okay. So Susan retires mid-year at say 64 years old after earning $40,000 for the first half a year. So she's on track for making 80,000 that year. She just made her 40. She's like, I'm done. I'm so tired. And then she's like, well, I'm out because I can't collect. I've made $40,000. The limit for this year is 22,000. I'm not going to get anything. But in your first year of retirement, Social Security uses a monthly test instead of an annual limit. Okay. So since she doesn't work the second half of the year, she still gets her checks. So that definitely saves a lot of people from panic or working longer than anybody wants them in the job force, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the questions are really starting to pile up for me. Let me just switch gears and I'm going to call it a lightning quick round, but I don't know how lightning or how
quick my answers will be.
Right. Yeah. But okay, let me just see if I can get a few more questions out.
The pressure's in. Okay.
The pressure's in. Okay. So here's a question that comes to mind. Is Social Security going broke?
That is a big fear. Yes, that's a good question because I hear that all the time. Well, there's a trust fund that supplements Social Security, but keep in mind, everybody's still paying in. So there's still money feeding Social Security. And it may run short in the 2030s, probably earlier, especially with WEP Repeal. That's more that's paid out. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. Everybody should be getting, what they've paid into, but the system will still be able to pay around 75 to 80% of benefits. So that's not zero. When we talk about depending on that, it's something to think about that you might not get even what's being reported on that. But most experts expect that Congress is going to fix it before then. But my goodness, we're approaching 2026. So yes, you can count on Social Security. Just don't rely on it as your only retirement plan.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that answer. Here's my next one, and it's about spouses. So what about spousal benefits for Social Security? And you and I have both been divorced and stuff, and so it also comes to mind. I've heard people talking about, my ex is pulling on my Social Security. So like, what about like ex-spousal benefits? How does that fit in? What's that all about?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think this is a fun one. Yeah. Well, there's lots of specifics, so definitely not a quick answer. And I can't obviously get into every detail for everybody's, but an example, let's pull out Harry and Sally. Sound familiar, right? That's our generation. So Sally would get her own benefit ultimately, and they're married. If it's lower than half the amount that her husband Harry gets, Sally would get an additional amount to her benefit that makes her benefit basically represent half of Harry's. So she's not just getting half of his, she's still working off of her history, but then they level up basically. So that's why people say, that she gets half the benefit, right?
And this is while Harry is still living.
Still living and still married to Sally.
Okay. Okay.
So jumping to the ex-spouses, to jump into your question, if Susan and Harry had been married for at least 10 years, had been divorced for at least 2 years, and Susan is not remarried prior to age 60, so lots of little, caveats, she'd be eligible for half of Harry's benefit once Harry once Harry, another detail, is at least 62 years of age. So he's got to be
Okay.
able, he does not have to be collecting benefits, but he has to be of age to collect benefits.
And she has to be
And she has to be of
62
age to collect benefits. So she
Okay.
can wait, but she
Right.
cannot collect benefits until they've been divorced 2 years. And if she, as long as she's not, they have to have been divorced at least 2 years, but married at least 10.
Okay.
And she cannot have
Be
remarried before age 60. So she can be
wait.
remarried, but after age 60.
Okay. Hold on. I just have to run
I know.
I'm sorry. And
write
maybe
it all
listeners are
down.
like,
Take notes.
I already got it. I don't. All right. She's 62.
Mm-hmm.
She gets married. She starts pulling benefits. She gets married at 63. She can
Mm-hmm.
continue to, I would say, it sounds like a pull from
Mm-hmm.
Harry's Social Security. He's still working. Let's say he's 64. Let's say he's still working. Huh. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I just have to think about that one.
So a different example, again, bringing it home, and this is more of a death benefit, but for all those years, Karen, Jeff's mom, was widowed. She was collecting her former husband, her deceased husband's Social Security benefit. And that's not half, that was full because it was a death benefit, not to switch gears too much. But she continued to collect that. Well, then she got married or remarried after age 60. She was still collecting off of this husband.
Deceased husbands. Okay.
Bob. She was collecting off Bob. Then Randy passed away, and this is why you have to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
But then her current husband passed away. So when we dealt with Social Security, they switched her to Randy's
death
Social
benefit.
Security.
Okay.
But we had to go back and say, nuh-uh, because Bob's death benefit was higher than Randy's death benefit. So she was allowed to keep Bob's.
Interesting.
Yes.
And you're right. You do have to be your own best advocate, because I would have never known any of this if it weren't for knowing you.
Good thing we know each other.
Good thing. Right.
So I also want to point out, though, that, one thing that I hear a lot of is like somebody doesn't want somebody to even know this information, being an ex, because they're afraid that it's going to, and they're remarried. So they're like, well, I don't want this to affect, it does not affect your benefit. It does not affect your current spouse's benefit. Okay. So your exes can collect. And I mean, technically, if you've got their Social Security number or you've got some information, you don't even have to talk to them. You have the right to collect on them.
Okay.
On them. You can look. Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Spot on. Yep.
All right. Super, super helpful.
So sorry, lightning round, not going so fast.
I know, it's a lightning round, right? Okay. So here's another question I have. If you claim early, let's say at 62, you're like, I am so tired, I'm just going to retire early.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, it might be other reasons, but probably where I'm at in my life. I'm like, I'm getting tired.
Right. Right.
There are days. Right.
Yep.
So, okay. So let's say you decide to start claiming Social Security at 62. You're like, that's it. I'm retiring early. And a year later, I don't know, this really cool contract lands in my lap. I'm like, oh, okay, now this I could do. I can handle this. But I'm already claiming Social Security. Can I reverse my decision and be like, sorry, government, can we just put a hold on that?
Yes.
I'll come back to you later.
You actually can, but you get one do-over, and, like you said, maybe you have a great job offer, whatever, but this is only within a year, within 12 months of starting to collect. Then you can actually withdraw your decision to collect. But of course, nothing's for free, right? They're not going to be like, yeah, you keep it. We'll catch up with you. So you've got to pay back what you've received and reset as if it never happened.
Okay.
So another thing that you can do too, say you collected, forget job, forget whatever. I mean, there's just whatever you collected at 62 and you're like, things are going fine and the market's doing well. And I can afford this. I wish I hadn't taken my benefits so early. Once you reach full retirement age, this is not a repay, this is not a reset, but you can say, hey, let's pause. Let's suspend my benefits and let them grow until age 70, or another year. So you can just get that kind of 8% step up in benefit. Obviously at 70, then it turns back on, or you can turn it back on earlier.
That.
Yeah. So
Okay. And so I could see where
definitely not always the best option, but it is a
it's not
safety
always the
zone.
best option.
Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting because I could see where it might be. I'm just thinking about some people that we know where maybe unfortunately their parents passed away, but there was a level of like inheritance.
Right. That's
All
what
of
I
a
was thinking of
sudden,
too. Yeah.
right? They might be 67 or whatever, 66, right? They get an inheritance, and by age 67, if that's their full retirement age, according to Social
Right.
Security, they might be able to say, I can go a couple of years based on the inheritance I receive. I'm going to pause Social Security, let that grow at 8% for the next 3 years.
Yep.
And then take it. So I can see where that would be really beneficial.
Yeah. I could go down a rabbit hole, but we'll keep this.
Yeah. We could be here all day, people.
Right.
All day.
Exactly. Here's another scenario, right?
Okay. Because there really is. There's so much to consider. And as we're talking now, like more questions are coming to my mind, but let me try and limit it. Right.
Okay.
So since I know I've said this before, you do work with a lot of first responders. So I think about it in those terms, and yes, and I do pay attention to what you say, even if it doesn't
I'm so impressed.
firsthand apply to me. I have heard you mention something about 457Bs because, we're talking about WEP. I heard 457Bs. I've heard some other stuff. How does Social Security fit into the bigger picture when we're talking about things like pensions or personal savings or other income sources?
Yeah, definitely. So like I talked about earlier, the 3-leg stool, 4-leg stool, however many avenues you have of income, but Social Security is just one piece of the puzzle. So let's consider a couple I worked with, and they had a pension, a 457B. For your reference, it's like a 401k. So same type of thing. And they had their Social Security. So the pension gave them that steady baseline income, like a paycheck does. Social Security added another layer of guaranteed income, like another paycheck. And then their 457B gave them that flexibility, money for trips, insurance, home projects, emergencies. So when you line it up this way, Social Security doesn't feel like the whole story, but it's a piece that gives you the stability while your savings can provide choice.
Okay. That makes sense. And I'm like pausing, some kind of like just taking it and going, all right, this, it's things that I've heard before too, is like have multiple streams or like multiple buckets to pull from. But hearing you say that today, as we're talking, it just kind of like cements that for me of there's strategy to that. So, I don't know, like we said before, we could just probably keep going. And because there is so much to know.
There is. Yeah,
if
definitely.
you had to leave anyone who's listening to this with just one key takeaway about Social Security, what would it be?
Well, we've talked about this. It's not a one size fits all. That's for sure. And timing matters. We didn't even go into so much about when somebody passes away and the proper timing of the higher earner and all of that. So timing matters, family matters, work matters. If you're still working, the rules can be confusing. But once you see how they fit into your life and the little bit that we talked about today, I think it becomes a lot less intimidating.
Yeah.
I hope it does.
Oh, absolutely. And okay, so there's a lot here. The takeaway is it depends. Maybe what you didn't say explicitly, so I will say it is the advice is ensure that you have an expert in your corner.
Not just your neighbor.
Please, not just your neighbor. Unless your neighbor's a financial
advisor.
Right. But, right.
Right.
But somebody like has like legit experience.
Right.
Are there tools and resources that people could use to start planning or just to start learning more so they feel like they have a little bit of the wherewithal or the know-how so they can ask the questions they want to ask of their financial advisor?
Yes. Well, I always like to refer people to ssa.gov and create their account. A lot of people actually have not logged in, and there's also some confusion. I'm sure you remember getting the statement in the mail, right, with all the
Yes.
stuff. Well, a money saving thing, right? And we're going
Mhm.
digital. So they
Mhm.
stopped doing that for those people under 60, under 59.
Okay.
So once you hit over 60, you'll probably start getting, unless they change it again, but paper copies in the mail. But right now you need to log in. And like anything, and this might sound super ignorant to some, but if you're not creating your account, somebody else can. So when, whether it's your 457B account, your 401k account, your social security account, create your passwords, create your own login so that you know what's happening. Ignorance is not bliss in this
So
situation,
true.
right?
Right. Right.
So, sit down with an advisor who can run numbers for you, and small decisions here can compound into huge difference later. So
Yeah.
compounding change is about compounding your actions to make change, but also those actions are your decisions of how to invest, when to start investing, how to create your retirement plan, and those little things you do to ensure that you leave a positive legacy for your family.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
so
I totally get that.
yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think that we can, I mean, we've said it before throughout today, but we could go on and on about it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be too convoluted and too much information. So, Jen, I mean, thanks so much for putting me in the hot seat today. It was fun.
Well, certainly. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's kind of fun to ask you the questions this time. And I really did learn a lot. I feel like each time we talk about this, I take away something new. And I'm just hoping that it sticks. But I really
Yeah,
also just hope that what we shared today might be, if anybody was feeling confused about it, I hope they got a little bit more clarity, around Social Security or what they need to be thinking about as they approach retirement.
definitely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it takes several times hearing it. People often apologize, but I enjoy talking about it and I enjoy researching stuff. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer for you. So, thanks for joining us on Compounding Change. If you found today's episode on Social Security helpful, share it with a friend or coworker. Be sure to follow, like, or subscribe to the show so you'll catch the next one. Until next time.
This has been the Compounding Change Podcast with Shannon Davis. If you are a firefighter or first responder, you know that change happens fast. Life changes, finance changes, compounding change. Shannon Davis is a certified retirement counselor who understands the needs of Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters members. Click on daviscompoundingchange.com to learn more. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to daviscompoundingchange.com or this podcast. Please note that investment involves risk and no statements made in this recording are indicative of future performance. The Compounding Change Podcast is brought to you by Shannon Davis.